Welcome to In Pursuit with Pastor Bill.
Hey, I'm just a simple guy in pursuit of knowledge, wisdom, understanding, wild game, fish that swim under the ice, tender smoked meat, tasty grilled meat, and Denise.
In this hour, we are going to be talking about all of that and a whole lot more. Bill has been with Maranatha since 2005 and the campus pastor at Maranatha Chisago Lakes campus since 2011. Come along and join In Pursuit.
Well, hey, good afternoon, everybody. I can say good afternoon. I don't remember even as I say that if every time we've done that, if I've said good morning.
Oops.
Yeah, I forget that it's afternoon.
Yeah, well, just a couple minutes. So
It is, yeah. Yes, it is.
A lot of grace there.
Hey, it's great to be here again.
It is.
Isn't it?
Exciting.
Yeah,
We like doing this.
we do. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Thanks.
We
It's
didn't
good to
drive
see you.
together today. That's weird.
Yeah, sad.
Yeah, it is. But we'll live.
We'll live.
Yeah,
I know.
I know it's tough, but we'll live. We are joined today, flying solo, piloting the ship solo today, Mr. Shane Heaver.
Well, hello there. Yeah, they all ditched me.
They
I
did.
think I probably should shower.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What did you do?
Breath mint.
Yeah, that's what,
Yeah.
it's my bad.
Yeah, no, but hey, it's good to have a team, right? That's the whole
Right,
point of
absolutely.
a team. You
Yeah,
know,
it's good.
Alice and James got busy and a lot of work to do, so Shane is over here at our Forest Lake campus with us. Welcome all of you listening. If you're listening live, as always, I would invite you to shoot us a text, myself, Denise, or Shane. You could also email us if you happen to be listening. We just kind of think it's fun to know who's out there and live and give a shout out. But you are listening to In Pursuit on WAJC, Your Life Radio, 91.7 in the Forest Lake area, 88.1 down South and East Metro, I guess is what it is. So great to have you. And just a reminder, if you happen to hear something you like on the radio, whether it's here or during Pastor Mike's show, which is every Friday between 8 and 9. It's called Something to Think About. You can listen live. But if you would like to share this with somebody, you can find both of these shows on pretty much any podcast outlet you use.
Yes.
Platform, I guess would be the term the kids use.
The kids.
You can find it there. You can also listen at yourliferadio.com, and you can listen live to the station. The station has music playing and news updates and other shows and all kinds of stuff. So just set that dial on your radio and tune in to WAJC, Your Life Radio. I wish I sounded like Barry White right then.
Yeah.
You know?
I kind of like the way you sound.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, just amazing, all of the different things going on.
I don't watch the news.
Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah. It's a lot of things, and I try not to get too caught up in it, but I like to be informed in it. But here's the thing, because I remember like during the last election, back in November, just people being pretty worked up about it. And it's nice to be able to encourage people and just say, as a believer, we have certain principles and ideologies that we would want to see our country follow, obviously. So we don't stick our head in the sand. We don't ignore it. We don't pretend like these things don't exist, because we want to be run by godly people. We want godly principles in our communities, our state, our country.
We want to be involved.
And we want to be involved. I would even say we need to be involved. Pastor Mike on the Forest Lake campus YouTube channel, something he does every Sunday, and again, it's on the YouTube channel. I believe it's called Breaking Stereotypes, but he reads a quote, a founding father quote every week. And the whole idea of that is to encourage people to try and get back to being a godly country, a Christian country, in the ways that we were founded. But there's so much of it that we don't have control of, and I just find such peace and confidence in knowing that whoever's in the White House, whoever's in the governor's mansion, whatever's going on in our culture, whatever's going on around the world, none of that stuff will ever change who God is.
That is such a good statement.
It is, right? God doesn't fluctuate based on our circumstances or what our culture is doing. He is a constant. He stays the same. And I think that is I don't know, it's just something that brings comfort,
Yes. Change is hard.
Yeah, change is hard. Yeah.
God doesn't change.
Hey, I got a couple texts here I want to touch base on. James Beamond is listening. Why aren't you working? How come you're not? No, I'm just kidding. We know you're working. You're always working. Jenny Gaskill, the station manager, actually, she said the Forest Lake campus lunch group is all ears. That's great. Thanks for being here and listening. Cindy Noble is listening, so that's awesome. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it very much.
Nice.
Last week, I was talking a little bit about turkey hunting, and just a funny note about that. I put out this kind of a shout out for people to let us know if they were listening, and our discipleship pastor, Chris Quistad, she and her husband were over in Michigan, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And they sent me a text that they were listening from Michigan, and the text stated the city they were listening in.
Yeah.
And because we were talking about turkey hunting, I saw it. And so it's spelled Gobles. And as soon as I saw it, because we were talking turkey hunting, I said, how cool is this? They're listening from Gobbles, Michigan. And they were cracking up.
Chuck was busting a gut.
Yeah. Because it's Gobles.
Gobles.
Yeah.
Only one B.
Only one B, yeah. And our children's pastor at the Chisago campus, her name is Cindy Noble, Noble. And so then there was the joke, then we should start saying her name.
Cindy Gobbles.
Nobbles.
Gobbles.
Yeah. Anyway, it was just kind of a funny little thing. Another opportunity for people to make fun of me and the simplicity of who I am, and I love it. It's super fun.
It's cute.
Yeah, it is. It's very fun.
It's endearing.
It's what?
It's endearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll accept that, I guess. That's good. So I got a hodgepodge of things. Today, so this show is called In Pursuit, and usually we have what we're in pursuit of. We've been in pursuit of the next season, in pursuit of balance, in pursuit of a better future, all kinds of stuff like that. And I got to be honest, today I don't have a specific thing of what we're in pursuit of. Today's going to be a hodgepodge kind of a program.
A mixed soup.
We're in pursuit of mixed soup. That's what this show is titled, In Pursuit of Mixed Soup, because this is going to be a mixed soup. I don't know that any of these are topics that we could spend a half hour or the whole show on. Maybe. We'll see how the conversation goes.
Yeah.
But it's just a couple of things that over the course of the last couple of weeks, phrases, ideas, principles that have come up in different conversations that I just happen to think are pretty good, kind of just ideas to think about in life. That's what I like to do, is examine my life, examine who I am, and make these adjustments,
Assess.
Yeah, just to continue to do that. So if you guys are okay with it, I'm stretching this warm and fuzzy entry thing as long as I possibly can. Can we just get into it now?
Yeah.
All right, that's good.
Let's just go.
Let's do it. So the first thing I want to talk about is this, as we are in pursuit of a mixed soup of ideas. Mm-hmm. I heard a statement, and actually I think you're the one who said this to me a few weeks ago, that has just continuously been coming back to my mind. And it was just a simple statement. I don't remember where you heard it, if it was a video you saw or something you read, but...
Yeah, I think I was just scrolling.
Okay. And it had, the statement is, are you a thermometer or a thermostat? And I thought it was a very interesting statement.
It is. When I read it, I was just immediately like, oh my word, it puts into understandable terms what you do when you walk into a group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. very understandable terms.
Yeah. And I even want to kind of, before we get into the breaking things down a little bit here, I think I don't know that there's a right or a wrong.
Right.
I think it's more just understanding yourself more.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
And as we understand ourselves more, we can then be aware of what we bring into a situation or a room of people or whatever it is we're doing. The more we understand who we are, the more equipped we are to handle or deal with or, you know, just kind of make it through that situation.
Right.
Or that conversation.
Yeah. It's just, knowledge is power, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's, if you're walking into a situation that it's a bad situation, you want to try and be a thermostat instead of a thermometer, just going with the flow and
Right.
taking that. If it's a bunch of negativity, you don't want to perpetuate that. You don't want to just keep the negativity going. You want to set the thermostat and change it.
Right.
If you can.
Yeah. So to define this a little bit, if you're a thermometer, and this is very confusing for me, but if you're a thermometer, then when you walk in, you adjust who you are based on the temperature in the room.
Right.
Or even just if it's one other person. It's not always, you know, a group, but it could be one other person. It could be a
Right.
conflicted situation. It could be a familial situation. But you walk in, and if you're a thermometer, you adjust to the temperature.
You become that.
You become that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, as I was making some notes and thinking about this, I was trying to kind of look at, like, what are the pros and cons of being a thermometer? And I think that there can be great benefit that comes from being a thermometer. Like, you have the ability to adjust to that situation.
Yes.
And that can be a very, very positive trait, right? Does that make sense to you guys?
It does. Yeah. You don't disrupt a room.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're able to like know your audience. You know, people always say that, you know, you make a statement that's inappropriate, and it's like, you kind of got to know your audience.
Yeah.
Here.
Yep.
And so there is an advantage or a positive that can come from being a thermometer and having that ability to go with the flow, adjust to things, and it can keep things peaceful.
Yes.
Right? And that can be a very positive, very, very positive thing.
Yeah. Or if you come into a room and it's great, I mean, people are happy, they're conversing. You don't come in and just change it all.
Yeah.
You come in and participate.
Yeah.
And you just add to the conversation. You don't try and change or make it different than the good that it already is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And now, along those same lines, that exact idea is also the danger.
Right.
Like you started saying just a couple minutes ago, if you walk in and it's heated up, or you walk in and there's tension, or somebody is going to bring that anger or that hatred or that bitterness or whatever it is.
Or you walk into a group that's gossiping.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
So now the danger is you walk into that situation and you just join right in.
Yeah.
So now if you go in and this you're happy and you're having a great day, you know, I got up this morning and walking around and just tell me, I'm going to have a good day today. I'm about to have a good day, no matter what they say. Do we get in trouble if we're singing the song and I'm singing it poorly? Shane said no, so the lawsuit goes that direction.
It's a cover.
It's a cover, yeah, that's right. It's a torn and broken cover when I sing it, yeah. But that's you can have that. You're happy and life's going good, and then you get to this one circumstance or one situation or one event throughout your entire day, and for some people even a week, where then that one conversation or that one circumstance, it's like it just totally changes you, you know?
Right.
And that one instance becomes what sets the tone for the rest of your day or the rest of your week, you know. And I'm hey, as I'm saying this, that's why I'm saying I don't know what's good or bad or right or wrong. I just think it's fun to talk about and be aware of. Okay, so like what do I do? Because I know there's times where, you know, because I get worked up about one thing or another, or going to be busy. It's like I'm already predetermining, man, I'm going to be tired. Or, oh, this is going to be a hard week. And instead of just being like, wait a minute, I'm about to have a good day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and so that's where it's, I think if we're aware of what our personality, what we tend to do, all right, then we can go into a situation and say, okay, this might be hard. This might be difficult. For some of you listening, maybe with Easter coming up, maybe that's the family gathering that really brings about that difficult situation. And so even with that, if as we're talking about this and you're listening and you're realizing, hey, I'm more of a thermometer, then even to be aware of that. If the family's crabby, if the family's bickering, if they're arguing, if they're talking politics, talking religion, all these things that you're not supposed to talk about at the difficult family gatherings, to walk into that aware of what's your personality, like what do you lean more towards,
Yeah.
being the thermometer where you adjust and let that
Become the room temperature.
right. Yeah. And you just do it.
Yeah.
So obviously the other one that we talk about is the thermostat. The thermostat, as you know, you when you turn the dial or the digital thermostat, you're setting the temperature in the room, even changing it. And so again, thinking of the pros and cons of this being more of somebody's personality.
Right.
There's things to be aware of. Because
I think there's pluses and minuses for this one too.
Absolutely. Because you could walk into a room where everybody's happy and like what you were talking about, things are good, whatever, and then you bring in this bad attitude and this anger and this bitterness, and it's like you're adjusting that temperature in the room.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And this isn't just, I got to think about this before I say it.
I wish I did that more.
Like it can be a peaceful room when people are enjoying it, and you could come in and be loud and obnoxious and destroy the peace for all the people.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not just an angry or happy thing.
Yes.
It's
a good point.
all
yeah.
emotions that have a positive and a negative.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Or even sad. Sad isn't always a negative. It's just sometimes the room is sad, and you come in and try and just be super happy and change everybody's sad moment. That isn't always a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
Just make people angry instead of sad.
Yeah. I know there's been times in church, there's been times where getting near the end of a message and I'll make a comment to that and it's serious and there's little background music playing and just this atmosphere and the Lord is stirring in people's hearts and I'll make a comment that's a very serious comment and somebody just louder than they'll just start laughing at the comment,
Yeah.
It's like
Wrong.
that's the picture I have of that. Yeah.
Yep.
But then there's also obviously the positive of, hey, if you go into a room or a situation like the family event for Easter or a conversation with somebody or whatever, and then you have the ability to bring positivity, to bring joy, and again, to get away from some of the emotions, to have the ability to bring self-control and patience and to bring love, into those situations. Now you're even in, like I would call this like it's hot, it's tense, it's whatever. Well, as a thermostat, you can come in and you can still turn the air conditioning on because you're going to set a temperature. And by your presence and your words and your demeanor and your attitude, you have the ability now to bring about that change in a situation, that the calm. And I think, like if you're in a situation, especially over the course of an hour or 2 hours, over Easter dinner where everything's tense and it's like, what are we going to talk about and how are we going to do this? Well, you can actually feel, and I don't know if this makes sense to you guys, but you can feel the temperature change in the room, even as though you turn the air conditioning on. Right.
Just through peace and kindness and love. And it's such a great tool to have in your toolbox to understand that you can be a thermostat.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have to
easier for some people just because of their personality.
Oh, yeah,
it's
for
easier
sure.
for some people, but I think anybody can make the choice to be intentional,
Yeah.
to be a thermostat, to bring a better way.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, again, that's what I loved about this when you brought this, was it's like I've never, ever thought about it that way. Personalities are like, I never thought of it. And
I hadn't either.
Yeah. And it just really, to be aware of that is like, which way do you tend to lean? Because we all have the ability to be either or both.
Right.
And there's some situations I think that you walk into and you almost have to predetermine going into it. Like, okay, I am going to be a thermometer. I'm going to be sensitive to the temperature that's in the room, but I'm also going to be a thermostat and try and adjust that temperature. So there's the wisdom that comes with, okay,
If it needs adjusting.
if it needs adjustment,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, these people are too happy. Stop
These
smiling.
two people are too peaceful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's an awesome way to define it,
Yeah.
and then have these two tools in your toolbox when you're living life.
Yeah. Awareness. I think awareness is the part, like the more I learn about me, and I would say even as we're going to kind of get into this, the second segment, the more I learn about you, I think that that awareness, it can just affect things so many times.
Yes.
You know, I don't, like, if you think of a fighter jet landing on an aircraft carrier, and I've said this to many people, and I try and think it, but the approach can dictate success or failure.
Right.
And so if you think about life in general, the approach we have, so if we approach it with even this one little awareness, okay, am I a thermometer, am I a thermostat? That awareness can help set us up for success in whatever it is we're dealing with, whatever the situation is.
Yes.
That makes sense?
It does.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's good. I think it's a good thing. So a little bit of a challenge to everybody listening is kind of think about that. Are you more of a thermometer or more of a thermostat? And even, I would dare you, if you have someone close to you, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, a close friend, ask them what they think you are. And then maybe just, it's good conversation. But for right now, one of my favorite times of the week is listening to this introduction. We are going to have our word of the week before our bottom of the hour break.
Word of the week. This is the part of the show where Denise and Bill learn new words in pursuit of knowledge and understanding of the English language, and so they can sound smarter. Yes, I do love words. So our word today is ruminate, and it kind of goes with everything you've been saying. I almost used ruminate a couple times while we were talking. Ruminate, to chew again or over and over. And then the other definition is to meditate on or ponder. You looked at me weird for that first definition, but I'm gonna explain.
Okay.
It's a good word. So the example in the dictionary is, after ruminating about it for months, I have decided to pursue a new career. That's a good sentence using it. Where does ruminate come from? Ruminate derives from the Latin verb ruminare, meaning to chew the cud.
That's when I look sideways on it.
Yeah. To chew the cud. Ruminare comes from the Latin rumen, which gives us the English rumen, the first of 4 compartments in the stomach of ruminant animals. Such animals, like cows, eat grass, swallow it, and then regurgitate it and chew it some more. When the food is regurgitated to be chewed again, it's called cud. Did you know all that stuff?
A little bit.
Okay. You can see how this process of chewing and rechewing can be used figuratively. When you ruminate on something, you think it over. In fact, the idioms chew it over and chew the chew the cud both refer to contemplating something for a while. Right. Ruminate can be used in both positive and negative ways. It can refer to thoroughly thinking something over or to overthinking.
Yeah, there you go.
So I would like to encourage you to use ruminate this week, because we know if we don't use our new word, we will lose our new word. And with that in mind, my sentence is, When I ruminate on the changes to life since Bill came on my scene, I'm very thankful for the good he has brought to it.
Oh, well, that's very nice.
Yeah, you do. When I think about it, when I ruminate, I'm very thankful.
I like it.
Yeah.
You're listening to In Pursuit with me, Pastor Bill, a production of WAJC, Your Life Radio on 88.1 and 91.7 FM. WAJC is owned and operated by Maranatha Assembly of God in Forest Lake, Minnesota. If you would like to visit Maranatha Chisago Lakes campus, we have 4 weekend services to choose from. Visit maranathachisago.org to learn more and to check out some past messages. So there you go. We're going to ruminate on a couple more thoughts today.
Lovely.
We're going to chew on them.
Chew on them
Yeah.
again, and then regurgitate them and chew on them some more.
Yeah, what we hope is you all will ruminate on whether or not you are more apt to be a thermometer or a thermostat over the course of this week.
Very nicely done.
Very nicely done. Back to our mixed soup as we are in pursuit of a mixed soup today. So that first segment, all about just talking about if you are a thermometer, a thermostat. And so, as I mentioned in that little bit, one of the things I want to encourage you, I'm trying to connect my thoughts here. I mentioned asking someone close to you what they think you are. What, are you more of a thermometer, more of a thermostat? And how does that maybe affect life, affect your relationship with them? What have they seen? And the whole goal of this is growth. It's just to try and continue to grow as people, and obviously as believers, implementing like the fruit of the Spirit in our lives. And like, am I bringing that into situations, especially difficult ones?
Right.
So if you don't have anybody in your life like that, that's where this next topic comes up. And the topic really has to do with the relationships we have in our life. Mm-hmm. And to kind of pause, ask yourself, maybe examine, like, do you have deep relationships in your life? People that like you could go to and ask that question about. Like, do I have people in my life I can say, hey, what would you say I am in these situations? It's people who have seen you in difficult situations, people who have been in them with you, and what would they see in you? Am I making sense with this?
Yes. They have to be close enough to you to be able to answer the question with proper information.
Right. Yeah. And I think, again, to me, it's a good way to assess the kind of relationships we have in our lives. Do we have, like, if you look at the relationships, are they all what I would call superficial relationships? And I want you guys both to kind of weigh in on this. So for me, I look at it this way. Do I only have friends that I talk about hunting and ice fishing and chickens and sap with? Do I only have friends? Is that the depth of conversation that I can have with everybody? Now, even as I say this, it's kind of a growing thought, and I'm going to ask you guys, for input on this. But I think a large portion of the people in our lives are that. They're what I would call superficial relationships, where pretty light conversation, you might have a couple things in common, but then that's the extent of it.
Yeah, but so superficial can sometimes have a negative connotation.
Yeah, and I don't mean negative.
No, I know you don't.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to say it out loud.
Yeah.
It's a superficial, it's a friendship, but you don't spill your guts to everybody.
Right. Yeah.
These people you don't spill your guts to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certain people, that's all you'll do is you'll go sit in a fish house with them. That's
right.
it.
Which isn't a bad thing.
Not a bad. You need people like that in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a bigger circle of friends.
Right. Yeah. And it's the assessing of, okay, is that all I have in my life are these? And because the other word I was going to use are like these shallow relationships, and I only mean in the, like if you look at the depth of the conversation, looking at a tree, I've been cutting up a lot of trees, and so you have a layer that it's the bark, and then a little bit below the surface, and then you get into the next layer, and when you get to the core, it's the tightest circle and
smallest circle.
So it's the smallest circle, yeah. So that's kind of the picture I have in my head, or of a target. Your bullseye, and then your target gets a little bigger, and then it goes out.
Right.
And just thinking about like the relationships, and maybe this is stirred up in me because I think with the, is the correct term, onslaught of social media, that, like I remember, and I don't know how many people use Facebook, and I remember in Facebook's early days that like you would talk about the number of friends you have, because it's a pretty specific terminology. I think I have 500 friends on Facebook.
Right.
And now for a whole generation of people that have grown up only knowing that social media environment, this is the definition of friends. I only share the highlights of my life with them. I only share the successes of my life with them, because how many of us put the most difficult situations and the real family picture on social media? Right. And so that can very quickly become the definition of my friends, is they see the highlight, they see the best. And that's for the terms I'm using, the superficial of, if I'm going through a hard time and I'm sitting in a fish house or a turkey blind with somebody, all we're going to talk about is that turkey or those fish. But then there's that next level and the next level. And what I want to encourage people to do is just take a second and look at, like, do you have your person? The 1, the 3, the 12, the 120. Just thinking even of Jesus with the disciples. Do you have that one person? Like, that's they know everything. The good, the bad, the ugly, the raw, the real, the painful. Right. So like for me, that you would be my one. You're my one. You're the go-to. You're you know everything.
Yeah, you're my one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I ugly cry.
Yeah.
In front of you.
I ugly cry in front of you.
I ugly and cry in front of a lot of people, though. It's part of my job.
Yeah. But then beyond that, you have your, a group of 3, and they are your, they're trusted people. Like, you're going to tell them your struggles, your fears. You're going to ask them to pray for you. You following me? Yeah,
it's such an important part.
Yeah. And then you get your circle a little bigger, and you're going to hang out with them. They're going to come to a barbecue, but they're not going to go that your house might be in foreclosure next month because your job is struggling, type thing. So again, it's just seeing that, but looking at having a well-rounded friend base.
Right.
Or maybe not even friend base, but relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Because I think it's just such a valuable thing.
Well, you need those outer rings, because you don't get to the inner rings until you've been in the outer ring. Like, you don't take a friend from the bark and bring them right to the center of your space. You just don't. You learn, you trust them with something, and if they fail at that, then you push them back out to the outer ring. It's not they get some information and they gossip about you, they go back out to the outer ring. You don't have to end that relationship unless you need to. Yeah. But they just go back to the outer ring. You don't bring them into the closer circles.
Right. Yeah.
You just don't.
Like, each ring has a boundary of, okay, this is as close as you're going to get.
Yep.
And so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's friends I have. I mean, me and Mike Veerling, that whole, the friendship that he and I have, that was formed because of a like interest that would be superficial. And again, like Denise said, I'm not using superficial in a negative way. It's just the way I'm defining that outer ring.
Right.
But it started just talking about hunting and fishing and finding we have these things in common. And then as we did those things together, we realized we have deeper things in common as well. And now we've become closer friends, and with a deep trust, where we can sit in, when we were out in Montana, one morning, we weren't going out hunting that morning. We sat in one of the fish houses I brought out there. That was kind of our cook shack. We sat in there and we were eating and drinking coffee for 2 hours, and we were talking about the Bible, and we were talking about faith, and we were talking about our lives and our growth and our walk and all that stuff. And that's the kind of thing that's now what brings a richness to the relationship.
Right. And you don't share those things with somebody that's on an outer ring.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not an everybody type thing.
Right.
And I think it's healthy. But again, what I want to ask people to consider today, ruminate on, is to take a picture of the relationships you have in your life. Because, like the Bible tells us, iron sharpens iron, as one man sharpens another. So, and so on. And if you don't have that iron sharpening relationship, then where's the growth going to come from?
Right. If nobody in your circles can say something hard to you without you just completely losing it on them or saying bad things back to them, then you don't have that inner circle.
Yeah,
there's no iron sharpening you.
Right. Yeah. And that's built over time and trust and living life together.
Right.
But it's so valuable to have.
Yeah.
That close confidant, that trusted, I love you so much, I'm going to tell you the truth type of a person.
Right. Right. It's not just a slap in the face. It's I want you to be better. I want better for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of friend.
Right.
Super important.
Right. Yeah. And those friends help bring healing and help bring freedom. I mean, there's so much benefit that comes from having those deep relationships.
Right.
Years ago, the Assemblies of God in Minnesota, the superintendent, his name was Clarence St. John, and I didn't know him well or anything like that. I knew him, but I heard him one time at a seminar, and he even had little business cards made up, and on these business cards he had an arrow going up, an arrow going to the side, and an arrow going down. And the message was, and I think it was even to a room full of pastors at the time, but the message was these 3 different, for lack of, again, my limited vocabulary, but 3 different people in your life, or people groups. So the arrow that was pointing down, do you have people in your life that you are reaching a hand down to, not better than, not looking down to, not judging and all of the negative stuff, but somebody, it may be that you're mentoring or that you're giving a hand up to, that you're teaching, that you're encouraging, that you're leading. So to have that person you're giving a hand up to.
Right.
And then that arrow to the side is those peers. Do you have people in your life that you're growing with, that you're living life with? And then the arrow up is, do you have people in your life that you're reaching up to and that are reaching down to help bring you along, that are leading you and mentoring you?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think, I cannot even begin to tell you the number of times I've thought of that myself as I've examined my life, but also the number of times I've shared that with people in my office, in the church, wherever, just like, I think even with Emma and Maddie, I've shared the importance of these 3 different people in your life, because, the goal being, am I helping? Am I serving? Do I have friends I'm growing with? And am I humble enough to know I need to be reaching up and being taught and led and mentored?
Yes.
Again, just trying to have a well-rounded life.
Right.
So
and knowing that you need to be reaching up gives you the humility to know that when you're reaching down to help someone, it's not a downplay. It's
Right.
not that you're better than them. It's just everybody needs somebody to help them grow. Everybody needs help.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to continue to grow, we have to be looking up to somebody. And I think that there's different, even with that, we could break this down and start splitting hairs to some extent. But I think if you look at even your life, there's people for you and I right now, as we're learning to do sap and we're learning with chickens. By the way, we got 2 new baby chicks yesterday.
That's so cute.
We're adding to our flock.
Yeah.
But there's so many things when it comes to things like hunting and fishing, the Bible, preaching. I mean, there's all these different aspects. Like if I just look at my life and I break it into these different categories or columns or sections, in each one of those, I have somebody that I'm looking up to and saying, okay, I don't know everything about this. I want to learn, you know? And in fact, in some of those areas, that can be that same area where like there's people I'm learning from Mike and Matt about hunting out west. And at the same time, I'm helping somebody learn how to bow hunt turkeys. Mm-hmm. So as I'm looking up to improve myself, I'm also helping somebody in that same category or circle of my life.
Right.
Am I making any sense at all?
Yes.
Because, so again, I just think it's so fun to evaluate that and see, because even articulating is like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then there's people that I'm probably on the same level with that we just get to have fun, and I'm not growing and I'm not helping. We're just enjoying it, you know?
Yeah. Just talking about it, enjoying the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's cool.
There's some people, Pastor Mike, over the last almost 20 years, just been a tremendous influence on me when it comes to communicating. Mm-hmm. And I continue to want to learn and grow. Well, then there's also, like even this morning, a meeting I had in my office. I was talking to somebody about putting a message together and how does that work and how do you do that and assembling and stuff. So even in those categories, there's the constant reach up. Mm-hmm. I always want to improve in this area.
Right.
And I always want to share what I've learned, you know? And I think that it's just it just brings roundedness. So if you're listening, I want to encourage you to, just consider those relationships in your life.
Right. It brings me back to the message you had about fit, being focused and intentional and taking the time. So taking the time to help somebody up and taking the time to listen when somebody else is teaching you. It just brings that back to me. It's like, you got to be intentional with these things. Otherwise, you just go through life and you're just watching Netflix all day.
That's funny.
Bill brings a lot of
You're funny.
a lot of hobbies to our relationship, and I brought Netflix.
That's not true at all. But
a little
that's
bit
funny.
true.
That's funny though. All right, so in our mixed bowl of soup, remember we're in pursuit of a mixed soup today.
Yes.
So we talked about whether or not you're a thermometer, a thermostat, and just kind of looking at that. We've talked a little bit about relationships and the depth of those relationships and, you know, just what it takes and the value of them. I want to end with this last little vegetable in our mixed soup. And that's the importance of our foundation. And so here's where this comes from. And Shane, I'm shocked at how quiet you've been when you're the only one in there and you got a mic this whole time. Like I know you're fighting it. I know that.
I think you guys were having an amazing back and forth. I don't want to interrupt the flow, you know? I'm more of a thermostat. I don't want to interrupt what's already going on, so.
Nicely done, sir. You're just sitting over there ruminating. Yeah. So the last thing is the importance of our foundation. And here, if I could just tell you where this thought comes from, and this is only going to take a few minutes, obviously, because our time is already ticking down.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I think it was yesterday in church, there was a young man, Samuel was in there, and he was just playing on the drum set. Mm-hmm. And he just is playing around in there. And I am no great drummer. I can keep somewhat of a beat. And so he's just playing around, and I went and asked him, I said, so, you know, are you just playing around? Like, do you want to learn how to do this? Or he's the greatest kid.
He really is.
Yeah, he's just an outstanding young man. And he said, I want to learn how to play, you know. And I said, can I just show you one thing? And so here's, like, we can learn from young people for sure, because he didn't with pride say no. He immediately, I love that. He jumped out of the seat, handed me the drumsticks. Like, there was immediate, yes, I want to learn. That could be a whole nother part of a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, how quick are some of us to say, yes, I want to learn? Like, you might have something to show me. I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to listen.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us just think we know it all. Mm-hmm. So so I just said, this is what I would do with the foundation. And I did a 4 count, 4 on the hi-hat, like the 1 on the kick and the 3 on the snare. And it was like, I just said, this to me would be a great foundation. If you get this as your foundation, then once this is solidified and solid, now you can start doing fills, you can start triplets, you can do all this other stuff, but you have your foundation. And then I, as I was getting up and I was talking to him about the foundation of drums, I just said, your foundation in life, in so many areas of life, is one of the most important things. Because your foundation is what everything else is going to be built on. If you're playing the drums and all you want to do is sound cool and do drum rolls and all this fancy fills and all this stuff, are you really, filling the role that you're supposed to as a drummer in a band, which is keep a constant tempo, give a solid foundation for the rest of the band to build on? Mm-hmm. And so if you come back to the foundation, and I just was thinking about it since saying that to him, the importance of our foundations in so many aspects of life.
Yeah.
Like relationally, if you go back to the relationships that we're talking about, as young people, young or old, if the foundation, if your foundation in your marriage is simply built on sex, that's a pretty weak foundation.
Yes.
We could get into this conversation too from a relationship standpoint. That's not saying that your sexuality within a marriage, a husband and wife marriage, is not important, because it's extremely important.
Yes.
But if the foundation is built on that, instead of a much deeper intimacy on an emotional level, a spiritual level, then that's a weak foundation if it's just built on physical attraction, because people change.
Right.
But if there is that deeper connection, now you're building on something that's solid. You're building on something where you can always come back to that deeper connection in the struggles.
Right.
And I think that, again, I just think it's every relationship, it's every aspect of life, is to pause and consider, okay, what is my foundation? What is it built on? What am I trying to build something on? Character and integrity and faith and hope. I mean, all of these things that they're unchanging things.
Right.
That's what you want to build a foundation on. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again, it's that topic of foundations could probably expand into a long conversation. But I think it's just to think about it, even if we brought it to relationships. What is your closest relationships? What is it built on? And evaluate that. And in some cases, we have to go back and we have to bang up our old foundation. At one of the houses I had years ago, a neighbor down the road was getting rid of their garage, and so we moved it onto our property. And we had to put in a new foundation. But first, I had to break up the old one in order for the new one to be built strong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's just thinking through, like, okay, what is my life built on? What are my relationships built on? And assessing it. And I don't know that there's, like, this isn't, I'm kicking myself, and I was like, okay, I want to say, here's 3 things to do, here's 5 things to do. But I don't think that fits here. Because I think for everybody, it's a little bit different. The important thing that I hope you take away from this mixed soup today is to like you said, be fit, be focused, be intentional, and take time to look at your life and to be in a mindset of, I want to grow, I want to mature, I want to heal, I want to experience freedom in my life. I want my life to be built on a solid foundation. And if you're 20 or if you're 62 and that's not on a good foundation, I think it's never too late to dig it up and pour a new one.
Yeah. Don't settle.
You don't have to settle, no. So I hope today in this mixed soup that if you're listening, you take something away. If you enjoy this or the other shows on this station, please share with your friends the website, yourliferadio.com, and all of the podcast platforms. Hope you have a great day. God bless you.
Bye now. Thanks for joining In Pursuit with Pastor Bill and me, Denise. We hope you will tune in next Thursday at noon as the pursuit continues. In Pursuit is a production of WAJC, Your Life Radio, on 88.1 and 91.7 FM. WAJC is owned and operated by Maranatha Assembly of God in Forest Lake, Minnesota. The opinions expressed here are not necessarily those of the owner.